All right, I'd like to talk to you guys and gals a little bit today about microplastics and similar environmental toxins and how they could be potentially affecting testosterone. And this is something that's becoming an increasing concern, and I have historically said this is probably a minor factor, but as I look at what some of the best experts in the research are saying, I think it's something that we possibly should be concerned about. And there's a reason I'm saying this. I have said for quite a while that the decline in testosterone in men seems to be, according to the leading experts, the primary factor. The primary cause seems to be obesity, right? It is too high a body fat. This is causing, again, lower testosterone, higher estrogen to testosterone ratios, things like that. This is one reason we're seeing stuff like very high levels of gynecomastia in men. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. You get in the fitness world and people say, oh, some gyno, that must be a sign of gear use. Probably not. A much larger percentage of American men have gynecomastia than men who use anabolics. I mean, it's not even like a small difference. It's like 50 people. It's like 50 to 1, probably. Because I've seen data showing as high as 25% of American men have it. Okay, 25%. I don't think even 1% of American men use anabolics. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, it clearly is the body fat and the hormone issues are at play here. So, when we look at all these things, we know that the data has largely shown that the body fat is the biggest factor in the declining testosterone. And people have tried to make really bizarre false extrapolations like, 120 years ago, testosterone levels were whatever, 3 times, 4 times what they are now. That's all nonsense. There's no evidence for that. People are looking at that saying, well, if we extrapolate the difference between, say, the 1970s and 80s versus today, we think if it was a linear decrease going all the way back to before we measured it, then that's what they're trying to say. But there's no evidence of that. In fact, all the evidence that we have only really shows that levels have only been declining, for 40 or 50 years. We have no reason to think they were higher in the 1920s or 1900s. We don't have evidence for that. And if anything, I'm sure not seeing photos of all these super jacked men from that time period in spite of a higher amount of manual labor, okay? The average guy didn't walk around looking jacked and buff, okay? They didn't. If anything, they were oftentimes just much thinner in general. So they weren't, bodybuilders. They didn't look like bodybuilders and stuff. So some of these ideas that people have, they had way more muscle from that. No, they didn't really seem to be the case. They had no more muscle than normal manual laborers do today. And that's just based on photographic evidence and other stuff. But when it comes to what we do know, the levels are declining. And again, body fat has been blamed as the primary, but here's the thing that bothers me. As a coach, I get clients in their 20s who aren't obese, right? They're not carrying huge amounts of body fat, who are going in and they're being diagnosed with clinically low or not always low, but much lower levels than you would expect. So let's say that standard scale is at 300 to 1,000. That's our baseline. I'm seeing guys in their 20s who work out, who aren't fat, who are down in the 300s. Not 400s, not 500s. They're in the 300s. All right, I've seen a couple of cases of this among my own clients. I have had in my time coaching at least 5 clients under the age of 26 who were clinically low. They were under 300, who worked out, had no history of using any sort of substances that would suppress it. Okay, so I want to be clear here. These weren't people, they messed around with something that lowered their levels. They took some drug or something else. And that wasn't the case. So think about that. You think in terms of sample size, it's not like I've coached 10,000 people here. My online coaching has been, approximately, since I've been doing that, I'm going to say 150, maybe 170 clients total ever. I've had 5 guys out of that come back with clinically low testosterone who had no history of anabolics, They were not obese. They worked out, ate reasonably healthy diets. Okay? Yet they were clinically low. And by clinically low, I mean under 300 nanograms per deciliter. So why are we seeing this? And I'm seeing other people, well, TRT at low levels, it's just not that common, but it is that common. I've had 5 clients who, through no apparent fault of their own, now some of them were on maybe other prescription medications from a doctor, in no way related to any of this, right? Everything from possible migraines to SSRIs. But if they're needing to be on those things and those things are suppressing it and they're on these medications long term, you guys see a problem? This is a possible factor. So I'm sitting here going, there's got to be other factors. There has to be other factors, because otherwise, why are we seeing this many young men come back? And I've known of other coaches and other people who have seen similar trends. It's not just me. So why are these guys coming back with these low levels? And their lifestyles are good. One of my guys, he was not obese by any real clinical standard, but he was a little fluffy, and his levels were, a little low, but they were above clinical reduced ranges. Then he cut down leaner. He lost 20 pounds on a cut, and his levels went even lower. Then they actually went into, and I'm not talking, he didn't get ripped. He got down to a nice, healthy, fit body fat, not 6-pack lean. What happened? His levels were low. So it seems like there are other factors at play, because we're seeing a lot of this. We are seeing men who are not falling into what a lot of the experts are saying, though, it's the obesity, who are coming back with low levels. And when you start looking at some of the studies, and let's step back, let's step away from the American studies, the Chinese studies. I've looked at a couple of Chinese studies done in the last couple of years. They're determining that the microplastics are correlated with reduced testosterone, reduced sperm count, all these other things. What else are we seeing? We know that everyone's being exposed to them. We're seeing it being found even in biopsies or being taken of people's atherosclerosis that's removed, right? So doctors are going in and unclogging arteries. And in that plaque, they're finding microplastics. My God. We don't know how much it's contributing to a variety of health problems. We don't have the answers. The best experts are saying we don't fully know. We know it's probably not good, but we don't know the specifics. We don't have the details. But then we are seeing data showing these lower testosterone levels. When people say, well, what can you do about it? You can't. Because a lot of these clients I'm seeing who are coming back low, they have good lifestyles. They're doing the things that you would want to do to, in theory, optimize it. And they're coming back with the levels of a 70-year-old man or a 60-year-old man at 22, at 24, at 25. And then they're needing to go on replacement therapy. So again, I would say to people who are like, well, it's not that prevalent, not that many people are really needed, that's such a small number. No, it doesn't really seem to be the case. Low testosterone is on the rise. And as a lifting community, we're going to have to think about this more. What are we going to do to counter this? And that's why I tell people this whole anti-TRT thing, when you start looking at how many people who have good lifestyles who through no apparent fault of their own are coming back with low levels, this is going to become more and more normal. It's going to become necessary just for overall health. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.